welcome back to the Team Podcast. I'm Sonia Bashez, and this week I'm joined by Jason Levin, the founder of Meme Lore Technologies. He raised $3 million to make memes and hit 100K ARR in 9 months without spending a single dollar in ads. Hi, Jason. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Okay, so we've got a really big topic for the first one. It's kind of bringing together three different things that I saw happen last week. One of them is that Wired article talking about the band Geese that seemed to have come out of nowhere. They had the biggest breakout year last year in 2025. Their fourth album was added to all of the year-end lists. They were on SNL. They just played Coachella. The Guardian called them the new saviors of rock and roll. And then the TikTok backlash started, calling them a fizz up, an industry plant, and questioning why everyone liked them all of a sudden. So the Wired article comes out and basically explains that a digital marketing firm called Chaotic Good Projects is running what they call narrative campaigns or trend simulation for Geese, where they have built out a network of TikTok accounts to play the background music using Geese. Sharing live clips, basically engineering ecosystems where people are engaging with the band's music, and having that music then filter out to the wider population. And it's working. So the co-founder described it on a podcast saying, "We can drive impressions on anything at this point. We know how to go viral." And it was called out by another singer-songwriter, calling it fake fans, where she basically traced the connection and said, if 100 people think your song sucks, Chaotic Good will then scrub all the mentions and get 200 people to create TikToks saying that they love your song. So the question here is does that count? Is it organic? Do people actually like your music? Or are they kind of building buzz around you? Yeah, that's kind of how marketing works. You figure out what's working, where the people are at, and then you find those people and do your best to get in front of them. So you kind of do engineer most of, the traffic, the audience that you're trying to do if you're good at marketing, right? I think what's different here is that it's a little bit more of how the sausage is made, and people don't like feeling as if they're being tricked into liking a band. But my thing is you're discovering a band that you might never have heard of ever if they hadn't been creating these engagement circles, and you like the band, so what's the problem? you know but Jason, I would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I would completely agree is the fact that people have been doing this forever. So
Mhm.
one of Memelore's biggest users actually is record labels. So record labels use Memelore to break new artists
Mhm.
using meme videos and doing it secretly by putting the music behind meme videos. So I'm very well aware of this and have been on the phone actually with record labels, a bunch of them the last 3 weeks,
Mhm.
because this is a huge use case right now is you
Yeah.
need to break music. It's hyper competitive. Right now, today, actually, I saw the news that Suno is now the number one music app on the App Store. So
Yeah.
it's a very hard, sneaky time to be an artist. You've got to be clever. And this has always been true.
Yeah.
If you think the meme pages or the fan pages on Twitter for artists are real, I've got really bad news for you guys. Yeah,
Yeah.
those are all created by the record labels. Like the
Mhm.
second they sign an artist, they start creating pages for them and they're run by 16-year-old interns who are working for free because it's music and
Mhm.
they just treat you like shit. And that's just how the music industry has always been. It's how the sausage was made. Some of the
Yeah.
best artists did it. Some of my favorite artists growing up, you find out later, oh, they bought YouTube views. Who cares? I love their
Yeah.
music.
Yeah.
And look, marketers are gonna do marketing-y things, right? The real problem here is actually the distributors. So things like
Mm.
Spotify. There was an article that broke 2 years ago called Ghost in the Machine. There's Spotify playlists of lo-fi beats or whatever. And it's
Mhm.
there's no lyrics. So what did Spotify do? They just used AI. That way they wouldn't
Yeah.
have to pay artists as much on their playlists. So artists are
Right.
just reacting to the times
Yeah.
and doing whatever they can by any means necessary. And I don't think this is anything new. Look, this is just astroturfing 101. What they're not even talking about is just the phone farms that people have, like, the
Oh,
straight up, like
totally. I
yeah,
mean, you tell
like
that on Twitter, if you're Twitter, YouTube,
yeah,
everything, where it's like you have circles of things. Like one thing I want to add to that is like I remember when MySpace like first came out and you had like bands figuring out how to get how to figure out how MySpace works so that they can be the music that, people are featuring on their pages. Justin Bieber, who just had his performance at Coachella, right? He became famous because of YouTube, right? Like they discovered him there. He figured out what he needed to do, started uploading videos of himself singing, or his mom did. And all of a sudden he like gets chosen by Usher and it worked, right? So it's like artists need to do that, right? Taylor Swift, right? A huge reason why she's so famous is because she interacted with people on Twitter, on Instagram. Her fans, she was like genuinely building those relationships. So it's like, it's not surprising to me that the next iteration of this is TikTok, right? I think where it gets a little tricky where it's like, well, all those people were doing it by themselves. Now we have, digital marketing firms that specialize in doing this. The singer-songwriter that called this out on her Substack admitted that she would totally do this like for
yeah,
herself.
anybody would if they had the money, and that's
Right.
just, like, the sad part is, like, I even look at people like Clavicular or whatever, I'm like, "Oh, those"
Mhm.
like, they're spending
Oh,
hundreds of
totally.
thousands per month on clipping, and you look at some of these new, media orgs, and, like, I'm, like, criticizing them, but at the same time, like, I've paid for clipping, and I would do it in a heartbeat again. I have, like, very controversial takes on this because of my background as, like, creating YouTube creator. I've done
Yeah,
the
yeah.
clipping, and now I'm seeing all these, like, companies doing it,
Mhm.
and, like, it really works if you're trying to be famous or, like, art or music, but, like,
Mhm.
if you have a different kind of product, it doesn't always work. But the point I'm trying to say here is like this is nothing new.
Yeah.
Like the whole clip economy thing is it's not new. It's decades, years old. Like they've been doing this forever. It's just like this is the final form. This is a late
Mhm.
stage capitalism where you could be in a group chat or a Discord with 30,000 kids getting paid
Mhm.
pennies, and like that is just what the labor market is now of like the internet and like before it was just you're in a record label back room, everybody's smoking weed and cutting up videos or putting up flyers, and now
Mhm.
it's, 30,000 of those kids doing it instead of 10 of them, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah. So
nothing
this is
changed.
yeah, yeah. So it's perfect segue into the other two things that I wanted to bring up
Oh,
in this topic, right? Where last week, marketing writer Rachel Carton talked about interviewing two agencies behind brand accounts that are popping up that are brand adjacent but
yeah.
aren't the brand themselves.
So,
And
I have a lot of
one of
thoughts
the
on this,
yeah,
so
and so one of them is called Arby's Boys, where you basically have them pretending to be like Arby's employees, and then Not Spirit Airlines, where you have similar, right? And so they aren't like official brand accounts, but they're bringing more views actually than the brand accounts because they're funny. They're able to say a lot of things that the actual brand accounts can't say. So it's become far more effective to be popping up all these like fan accounts than it is to put the energy behind the actual brand accounts. And this kind of led to another thought that we'll talk about later here, but this whole idea of like having in-house influencers that like are pretty much just creating under your own brand. And we've seen this kind of we've talked about this actually here where we had the Staples baddie, right? So that was like an employee that kind of was doing these ASMR like videos all on her own, right? She was just like
yeah,
doing
yeah.
it for love of the game, right? And now we're starting to see that like companies are realizing, oh, people want organic content that is coming from regular people. Well, how do you create organic content without trying to find, like the person that's going to do it? You start bringing in like content creators that will like do the work for you and put it in their own voice so that you're kind of getting their personality and their character and their allure, their audience, and not messing up your brand account, which kind of has to stay a little bit boring, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So,
so 100%. I mean, we've been doing this for brands for about a year actually
mhm,
and running fake pages or secondary pages, we call
mhm,
them,
mhm.
because it allows them to take a lot more risk. And
Yeah.
so if you're running a serious brand and you want to leverage humor, what do? You don't do it on the main page necessarily. You do it on
Right.
secondary pages that subtly feature your page. So we've been doing this for a few different unicorns, having a lot of success, for
Mhm.
the last year actually, and it's a lot of AI, it's a lot of sauce around that, and people love the accounts. They love them,
Mhm.
and at the end of the day, it's just leverage on the main brand account and the main company. I think, like, something that a lot of people mistake and, like, for anybody listening to this, like, memes won't save you. You'd think I'm the guy who's like memelord.com, raised 3 million bucks to make memes, but like you still need a good business. And like it's
Mhm.
not just about virality or starting like 20 accounts. Cause like
Mhm.
I see some of these kids on Twitter who like start 40 accounts and they're just selling like an ebook. And it's like,
Right.
dude, like if you took that time and like built a software, you'd be like, you'd add another couple zeros in your bank account. Like,
Yeah.
and that's why it's so powerful for businesses that do have good businesses, right?
Right.
Like, something like Arby's or something in a boring commodity business that's been
Mhm.
around forever or that has a solid business, like they need humor. The last way to stand out is to be unhinged and you can't just do that on your main account. You need the secondary accounts, whether you're a rapper and you have a secondary account dedicated to cars. I've seen that. Whether you're,
Mhm.
a compliance brand and have a fake European VC, right? You've seen that on Twitter. Whether you're, whatever industry, like you need multiple accounts. And it's also just about like reps now, where it's like we're no longer in the follower economy or follower
Right.
dominated timelines. I think Twitter's like the best at it. And still people complain every day about
I
like
know.
growing their following and like not
Yeah.
getting access. But like, bro, you see TikTok, right? Like
Mhm.
the followers doesn't matter. You see like
Yeah.
a bad video just doesn't pop. And, it's something I think everybody's reckoning with. I think a lot of like, I feel bad for the early YouTubers that spent like
Mm.
10 years growing to 3 million subscribers. And then they're just like, what do I do now?
Mhm,
Um,
mhm, mhm.
so I think that's why they started secondary accounts, right?
Right.
Like Mr. Beast has 10 accounts. Like every
Mhm,
big
mhm.
YouTuber has niche accounts, right?
Right.
We're all just like, doing similar things. It also like, I don't know. I think we're gonna start seeing a lot more of this is all I'm gonna say, like,
Oh,
secondary,
totally.
3rd, tertiary,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I
50
think the biggest
accounts, you
thing
know?
is you have to go where the customers are,
Yeah,
and the biggest thing that customers are doing these days is they don't care to follow brands. They just want to be in the ecosystem, and if they see a funny brand video, they'll like it, but that doesn't mean that they'll like go and follow your brand to follow the rest of like your content. And I think that a lot of brands are missing that because they're like, well, why isn't our brand growing? It's like it doesn't matter. We're playing the algorithm game now, and what that means is you have to be creating content that people actually want to see and come back to, right? The other thing is that, like, because of the way that the algorithms are working, it doesn't matter if they follow you anymore because as long as they interact with you or engage with you in some way, they're going to get your content, popping up in their feed. And as long as they don't just like automatically swipe, you're going to keep going into like their feed. I have so many clients are like, well, why is my follower count not growing? And it's like, okay, but your engagement is growing, your likes are growing, your impressions are growing. Like, let's look at that because those are like the bigger things that like affect the outreach that you're going to be having. And the more that people like see you pop up, maybe eventually they'll convert, but you have to like continue putting out that content. The last thread is this whole idea that I'm seeing of I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but the clipping that's happening with like podcasts, TV, films, and music. Obviously, we've seen a lot of this in podcasts because
yeah,
that's
yeah,
a lot of how they get out there. But the change that I'm starting to see is the movie studios are starting to put out what are essentially summaries of their films or TV shows directly onto like TikTok
yeah.
and Twitter. And I'm just like, I'm watching like the whole thing. Am I actually gonna go and watch the Netflix show? No. But I'm like interested in like the, minute clip that they've, put out for like the show itself. They're starting to think it's more of a Gen Z thing. I quibble with that. Like I'm gonna find like entertainment where I'm gonna find it. And this is kind of like a way for me to, see what's going on in terms of pop culture without actually having to spend the like, 6 to 10 hours to watch a whole season of a show that's not actually gonna make it into the monoculture, you know? And the other one is What I am seeing the difference in is the types of shows that are doing more of the clipping, right? Like for things that are getting into the monoculture, like Project Hail Mary, The Pit, all these shows that like people are watching, Game of Thrones and everything, you see more of like the teaser style trailers and fan cams and all to get you to actually go watch the show instead of the ones that are giving you the summary. And I think that that's like a difference of like the company starting to realize, okay, this is a show that people will actually watch, will actually spend the time to watch with everybody else. They want to participate in the closest that we get to monoculture. And then these other shows, Netflix shows that, they've got like one season or whatever. Are the ones that like we want to clip. And this is an idea that they've started taking from the fan cams that are coming from fans that want to get people to like watch, their favorite shows. And then in order for them to continue actually making the show later. Um, so would love to hear your thoughts on this, on clipping in general, what you think, like what you kind of see like the progress and like the future.
Yeah, I think it's very similar to memes in a sense of memes are the oldest form of marketing. It's just funny
Mhm.
marketing, right?
Yeah.
That's the oldest form. I mean, maybe sex is the only thing older than humor marketing. And like clipping is nothing new either, is like where my head's at. It's just we
Mhm,
finally have software to do it at the speed of light and internet to connect everybody. Like clipping has been around, like whatever, 100 years. Like there were TV, like mini TV clips that like got shared, people watched those. There were radio, people would listen to segments on repeat or
mhm,
whatever, like early days of YouTube, CDs, like that's just clipping, right? Like it's just
mhm,
making content shorter and distributing it. We're just entering a very weird time. So I have a group chat of 40,000 kids on WAP, right? If you've heard of that, right? And
mhm,
so when I was growing my YouTube channel, I invested, 10 grand into clipping.
mhm,
And I would just drop in a Google Drive folder of all the videos of me. I'd tell 40,000 kids, here's $2 per thousand views you get. Go clip it, right?
mhm,
And these 40,000 kids would do whatever they want. And it comes down to the fact that creativity from the masses is way more powerful than me
mhm.
hiring 3 kids here, right?
Yeah.
And like look, the clipping economy, like it's like I said earlier, like clips are really good if you want to be famous or viral or a YouTuber or influencer. And like I was going down that path of creatory influencer, then I went
Mhm,
and raised and like I am not sure like does it also work for startups? And I think we've seen a
mm,
couple. I'm not going to name any names because I'm
mhm.
friendly with them, but like we've seen a couple who have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into clipping their startup and it's failing
Yeah.
miserably because it doesn't work. Wanna know what works? Is, like, go in your fucking CRM and find people who have a lot of money, contact them, and book a call. Like,
Mhm, mhm.
there like, it works if you're trying to be famous, but, like, you shouldn't be raising money if you're trying to be a famous influencer, and I think people are always really surprised when they hear me say this because of my background and, like, because of, like, my work, but, like, if you're building a startup, like, I'm just saying, like, you can ignore things, like,
Mhm,
um, when it comes to music or movies, go clip, go
mhm,
crazy,
mhm,
like,
mhm.
your entire job is views, like,
Right.
and, that's also part of why we raised for Meme Lord was, like, every movie studio, uh, who releases a comedy movie or any movie, right? Those screenshots turn into memes and meme videos, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Wouldn't it be nice if there was a place where people could edit them and immediately get them on the meme pages they want, right? That was part of the thesis when I got our first angel check was because our investor was working on a movie, right? And if you're going into clipping, just be careful and, like, don't expect it to just be like that, and also, if you have a product that isn't just you,
Yeah.
like, it might not be the right way to do that. That's all I'm saying on
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. No, I agree with that. I see a lot of companies like interested in, oh, we should be on TikTok. And it's like, okay, but is your audience on TikTok?
Yeah.
Are the people that are actually gonna purchase from you on TikTok? If not, then you'd be better like served going to LinkedIn, and being where your customers are actually gonna buy your product. And setting up, thought leadership campaigns that you can do there. I think a lot of the times, especially young startups and young founders have this like idea that, oh, you have to do like the coolest, like, edgiest thing in
Yeah.
marketing. I mean, that's why we saw, like, the huge dearth of, like, launch videos that came out, in the
Oh,
past 2
ugh,
years,
it's been
because
bad.
it's like
We're in a
someone
bubble.
started doing it right. Someone started doing
Oh,
it, thought it was cool, and now it's like, okay, every company has to
yeah.
spend what, like, $40,000 to do a, like, launch video? That's insane. Um
I spent $300 on our launch video, got 1.1 million views, and it's because I edited it myself,
Mhm.
and I loved every second of making it, and it was so
Yeah,
special. I raised 3 million bucks. I could have spent 50 grand, but I'm
right.
cheap, and I like doing stuff myself, and there's no reason to. Everybody's just trying to copy Roy, and Roy has sauce, but, like, that doesn't mean you have to go copy that, alright? Like, I love Roy, like, I've supported him since his early days when he was at
Mhm.
Columbia, but, like, you don't have to go try to be the next Roy. You could just be yourself, and,
Well, but
like
that's the hard part, right? Everybody just
yeah.
sees, "Oh, that marketing is working, I should do that
But it's
marketing."
not working, that's the thing.
Right.
It's like, it's working really well for the people who get paid to quote tweet your company. Like, I know of an
Right.
agency apparently doing 10 mil a year in just launch videos and the quote tweets surrounding them. Like, we are in such a bubble where all these kids are trying to copy Roy in
Mhm.
order to get a fat VC round for a product that doesn't work, and it just
Mhm.
that is a really good way to get famous in the infamous in the worst way possible and get
Mhm.
blackballed from Silicon Valley. And, like, we are in such a fucking bubble. Go take the time to go build a real product and
Yeah.
then, go make a video. But that doesn't mean you need to spend 50 grand on it. You
Mhm.
just don't need to. I could be wrong and I'm not
No, I mean,
risk
we're
on
seeing the
enough,
backlash,
but
right? We're seeing the
yeah, we're seeing
backlash
a lot of
on
backlash. We're
where
like,
people are like, "Oh,
people are going to
another
jail.
launch
There's
video."
fraud. Yeah,
Right.
there's a lot
Well,
of
yeah.
fraud. There's
There's all
so
that
much
for
shit.
sure. I mean, we saw the Delve, situation that happened, like,
I'm
a
not even
month
talking
ago,
just
like
that. I'm talking, like, even you think about all the unpaid promotion, all that stuff, like, look, like, I'm all about growing your own meme accounts, everything like that, but I don't know, we're getting into a weird timeline where, everybody's vying for attention of, people that might not even buy your product,
right.
and, like, there are a lot of ways to get attention that aren't a launch video.
So lessons for the last thing is this whole idea of like what does it mean to be organic and create organic content. I think we're kind of past that in the sense that there's still authentic ways for you to create fake content that is organic because of the way that it feels to people who see it. You're just finding people that are more, are better creating, to create that UGC instead of random customers that aren't good at creating that content, right? And even then, we create testimonials for customers all the time, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
I
how
look,
much of it is real, you know? And I understand the whole people not liking seeing how the sausage is made because there's so much of this, anti-marketing bias, I think, like anti-ads, like just marketing in general, that people think it should be real and authentic. And it's like that doesn't exist. It's the internet. And so that's where brands need to think about, well, how can we get as close as possible? Like we can find creators that genuinely love our brand to create content for us. We can, help customers create better, UGC or, start working with like employees, right? We started seeing like a lot of people in-house, like employees being able to be subject matter experts about, the product or the service that is far more interesting to people to learn about than it is, something that's like a testimonial from a customer. What I mean is like we just saw with like Project Hail Mary, all like the cinematographers and the directors like come out and speak about how they're creating the shot and how they built like the actual sets. And that content got so many more views than just like the fan cams of like Ryan Gosling, which, fine, we're going to get views because it's Ryan Gosling. But showing the behind the scenes of how everything kind of came together made the entire campaign for the movie far more viral than if
yeah.
it had just been relying on Ryan Gosling to be pretty and talk about the movie.
Yeah, I think that also comes down to the fact that everybody assumes everything's AI now, so if you show
Yeah.
behind the scenes, then you're suddenly, "Oh, this is real," and I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, if you could prove that you're human in today's world, it's worth a lot of money, and, like, people will love that, especially, like, in the age of AI,
Mhm.
UGC, and all the bullshit around that. That being said, back to your UGC, I had a very interesting call this morning with my team. So we sponsored this guy who does 5-minute breakdowns on memes and the etymology and nerdiness behind it.
Mm.
And I was like, "I could never do this."
Yeah.
Like, this is Adam Smith's division of labor, like, oh my god, like, I
Mhm.
just can't do this. Like, it is a great way to get somebody yapping about your shit, and he did it in
Mhm.
a great way where it just says, "Sponsored by Meme Lord" in the middle, "Thank you for
Mhm.
supporting." It wasn't, like, over the top, it wasn't shady, like,
Mhm.
I think every brand needs to figure it out for themselves and, like,
Mhm.
really think about what you want your brand to be,
I mean, that reminds
and
me of the
yeah.
Subway podcast, where it's like
Yeah, yeah,
there's just 2 bros going back and forth talking in a
that's it.
podcast, and then it's like a Subway podcast. Brands are figuring it out.